Tales of the Jedi released just over a week ago, and now that everyone has had time to see it, I wanted to make a video about it. This video is a spiritual sequel to the other video on my channel, Every Change from the Ahsoka novel to the Clone Wars, as we will be discussing all the changes and retcons from the novel Star Wars Ahsoka by E.K. Johnston to Episode 6 of Tales of the Jedi, Resolve. The episode begins with Padmé's funeral, which is expanded upon from the scene shown in Revenge of the Sith. We see that not only are Bail Organa and Mon Mothma in attendance, but so is Ahsoka in disguise. However, Bail recognizes and confronts her, warning that she shouldn't be there. The Ahsoka novel doesn't make mention of Padmé's funeral, but it's implied that Ahsoka is aware that Padmé is dead, so it is plausible that she could have made her way to the funeral. However, this is where the first major change takes place. As previously mentioned, in Tales of the Jedi, Bail notices Ahsoka at the funeral. In the novel, one of the major plot points involves Bail discovering a Jedi survivor doing good deeds throughout the galaxy, and eventually finding out that it's Ahsoka, thus realizing she survived Order 66. This happens approximately a year later than in the show, and when Bail tries to recruit her, Ahsoka initially declines, much like in the show. Eventually though, she accepts his help, and accepts something to be able to signal him, which will be important later. Following this, she descends the canyon below, meeting Rex and departing the planet in their Y-Wing. In the episode, after the sequence on Naboo, Ahsoka ends up on a farming planet. Rex is nowhere to be found, and it is presumed that by this point, they have parted ways, and this likely takes place later than Rex's appearance in The Bad Batch. Whilst this location is similar to the novel, the terrain is very different. In the novel, the moon Ahsoka hides on is called Rada, and it is described as such. She found the green fields of Rada. As you can see in Tales of the Jedi, the planet Ahsoka is on is not the healthy green Rada is described as, but rather more of a dry brown, with several copses of trees, whereas Rada seemingly doesn't have trees, or at least they're not a major feature. One constant between the two mediums is that on this new planet Ahsoka hunkers down on, she takes the name Ashla so as to hide her identity. Ashla is another name for the light side of the Force, and Ahsoka didn't want to attract any attention with the name of a Jedi, so changing her name was the best course of action. In the novel, upon arriving on Rada, Ahsoka, now going by Ashla, recognizes that it's a farming community, and, as she says herself, "I'm not much of a farmer." Instead, she uses her mechanical knowledge she learnt from Anakin to work as a mechanic for the town, fixing the farmers' threshers, their farming droids. In the show, however, Ahsoka does farm, or rather, she carries and stacks bundles of crops that have been cut by other farmers. We only see this briefly, however, as immediately after this in the show, a repulsor lift cart is overladen with the bales the farmers are putting on it. Two siblings, a brother and a sister, are arguing over how many bales are safe for it to hold. The cart then topples, falling down onto the sister, but we see that she was saved by Ahsoka using the Force. There are many differences in this scene, so to begin with, we'll talk about the siblings. In the novel, they are both sisters, one around Ahsoka's age, called Kaden, and one younger, named Miara. Additionally, in the novel, the sisters are dark-skinned, as opposed to being white in the show. One final difference between the siblings in the show and the novel is that in the novel, Kaden, who has a major role in the plot, is queer and is romantically interested in Ahsoka, and she is called out on this multiple times. There is little evidence of the sister in the show having more than a friendly interest in Ahsoka. In regard to the repulsor lift, this moment in the show is what cements Ahsoka as a Jedi in the eyes of the village, or specifically the brother, who alerts the Empire, which leads to an Inquisitor coming to the town. Prior to this moment, the Empire is not actively on the planet, but the people are aware of the Empire and its methods. In the novel, Ahsoka is revealed as a Jedi through more complicated means. For a large portion of the book, the Empire has already been on Rada, but before that, the villagers didn't know much about its methods. Since its arrival and the beginning of its tactics, the villagers, including Ahsoka, have been planning ways to rebel against them. Ahsoka has been using her training to convince the townspeople that stockpiling food and resources, recruiting people to their cause, and playing a waiting game is the best way to go. However, some villagers decide to attack immediately, and Ahsoka must go and rescue them. In the escape, one villager dies, and Ahsoka uses the Force to save the rest of them. It is this action that alerts the Empire that there is a Jedi on Rada, and thus, Ahsoka must flee. In the show, she doesn't flee, but leaves on a delivery, which is when the brother alerts the Empire. Ahsoka being discovered in the show is not treated as a bad thing by the sister. Whilst the brother is wary and alerts the Empire, the sister is amused by it and sees it as a fun little joke between them. This is in stark contrast to Kaden's reaction in the novel, where she is extremely angry, not because Ahsoka hid being a Jedi, but because she didn't use her abilities to help them sooner. Despite this anger, Kaden still cares about Ahsoka, and Ahsoka about Kaden, and so when the Empire subsequently sends an Inquisitor, who is not named in the novel, but has since been identified as the sixth brother, he uses Kaden to lure Ahsoka in. Furthermore, he kills any villagers who resist, particularly those who were in the rebelling group from earlier, but he doesn't destroy the town, as he uses it to attempt to control Ahsoka. Conversely, in the episode of Tales of the Jedi, the Inquisitor razes the whole town, leaving only 2 survivors, excluding the sister who is on the delivery with Ahsoka. He proceeds to use these survivors to manipulate Ahsoka into revealing herself to him as a Jedi and fight him. The final major change from the novel to the show is in the fight between Ahsoka and the Inquisitor. In the show, Ahsoka avoids the Inquisitor's 3 attacks, grabs his lightsaber, shutting it off in the process, and then steals it to use it to kill him. This all takes place in about 6 seconds. This is very different to the novel, where the confrontation between Ahsoka and the Inquisitor takes approximately 5 pages, with a much more in-depth conversation. It's not clear exactly how many strikes he attempts against her, but it's many more than 3. At one point, Ahsoka jumps over the Inquisitor, and then must avoid a firing line of stormtroopers who are present in the intact town. When Ahsoka grabs the Inquisitor's lightsaber, it is spinning, and she places her hands inside the guard, much like Kanan does with his lightsabers in the finale of Season 1 of Star Wars Rebels. The hilt cracks, and Ahsoka jumps back as the crystals overload and the lightsaber explodes, which kills the Inquisitor. Following this moment in the novel, Ahsoka constructs her new lightsabers, takes down the Imperial compound to rescue Kaden, and escapes, signaling Bail in the process. He doesn't arrive himself, but sends Captain Antilles, who brings not just a frigate, but also a number of fighters to take down the Imperials. Ahsoka gets involved in the fight as well. It is only after they have safely escaped that Ahsoka rendezvous with Bail to discuss her future as a part of the rebellion, running his intelligence network and taking the name Fulcrum, which is where we next see her in Rebels, as this is the end of the novel. In Tales of the Jedi, after Ahsoka defeats the Inquisitor, she speaks to the remaining villagers, who ask her where they can go now. It is then that Bail arrives, this time without any fighting, taking the villagers in and asking Ahsoka if she will continue fighting, to which she nods, ending the episode. These are all the changes, both major and minor, from the Ahsoka novel to Tales of the Jedi. There are large swathes of the book not covered by the 12-minute episode, so I have mainly focused on the differences between what we see on screen and what we can subsequently infer has been changed from that. Star Wars continues to release new content in many forms of media, so if there is another series of changes you would like to see me cover, subscribe and comment below.